All right, let's get into something pretty wild. Imagine it's 1909, and this strange, ambitious journal just appears out of nowhere. And it's not just a magazine, it claims it's here to kick off a whole new chapter for humanity. It called itself a laboratory for the soul, using a method it named Scientific Illuminism. Today, we're cracking open the pages of that very journal, the Equinox. I mean, right out of the gate, from the very first sentence of its first edition, the Equinox comes out swinging. This isn't just a review. It's a completely new adventure in the history of mankind. Talk about confidence, right? It sets the stage for a system that truly believed it had found the key to unlocking a higher state of being. So this brings us to the big question we're tackling here. We tend to think of self-help as this modern thing, with all the apps and life hacks. But what if one of the earliest, most detailed guides to mastering yourself wasn't about productivity at all, but was actually a manual for what its creators saw as a kind of scientific magic? To really get what they were offering, we have to first understand the problem they were trying to fix. I mean, why did the world even need a new adventure? Well, according to this journal, the problem is baked into our very existence. The way they saw it, our whole life is basically a struggle from the get-go. We're born into chaos, what they call a strife of contending forces. And because of that, our number one job, our first and most important mission, is to find clarity, to find the light, by learning how to balance all these warring forces inside and outside of us. So how in the world do you do that? Well, the journal was the official voice for a group called the AAA. But here's the twist. They didn't act like a bunch of mystics or fortune tellers. Nope, they framed their entire system as a school of science, a kind of laboratory for the human spirit. And they were very, very clear about what they were not. They had no time for what they called charlatanism or miracle mongering just to trick people. They weren't trying to be occult showmen. They saw themselves as serious researchers and educators on a legitimate scientific quest. Their purpose was actually pretty straightforward. They were a school, a place for anyone who was genuinely thirsty for knowledge. And they were teaching a method to reach a higher state of being. But here's the most important part. Proof lies in success. It wasn't about just believing them. It was about running repeatable experiments on yourself and getting real, tangible results. But hold on. Before you could even think about starting one of their experiments, the journal lays down some seriously strict rules for your mind and your ethics. This isn't just about going through the motions. It's about completely rebuilding your mental foundation from the ground up. The whole system, and I mean all of it, is built on this one single concept: equilibrium. They call it the basis of the work. The idea is that you have to find perfect balance within yourself first. Only from that completely stable, centered place can you even begin to effectively direct your own energy and will. And this foundation leads to a pretty intense moral code. To them, any unbalanced force is evil. Simple as that. Fear isn't just a feeling, it's described as straight-up failure. The whole path requires total control over your passions and, you guessed it, your thoughts. In fact, they say that learning to control your own mind is the key to unlocking any real power. So once that foundation is set, the journal gets down to business with its core curriculum. And this is where it stops looking like philosophy and starts looking like some kind of intense spiritual boot camp, a serious workout for your body, your mind, and your soul. And they were not kidding about the science part. It was mandatory that every single experiment, every attempt, had to be recorded in a super detailed journal. We're talking your physical state, your mental state, the time, the place, even the weather, anything that might have influenced the result. This wasn't some casual meditation diary. This was hardcore data collection. The first workout is asana, or posture. And the goal sounds simple, right? Just sit perfectly still. Oh, but it is so not simple. The idea was to get into one of 4 specific, really difficult positions, like one called the thunderbolt, and hold it with every single muscle tensed up for as long as an hour without moving a millimeter. Next up is pranayama, or breath control. And again, it's incredibly precise. You close your right nostril, you breathe out through the left for 20 seconds. Then you breathe in through the left for 10 seconds. Then you switch hands and do the whole thing on the other side. And you keep doing this over and over for a full hour. The goal? To gain absolute mastery over your body's most basic rhythm. And now for the final core exercise, which might just be the hardest of them all. Dharana, or or thought control. This is the main event. Your task is to force your mind, to constrain it, to focus on one single, simple imagined thing, like a yellow square or a blue disk. And you have to hold it there, perfectly stable, without a single other thought breaking through. So you've got this tough ethical system, you've got this grueling physical training, and you have this impossible-sounding mental control, all logged like a lab report. What on earth do you even call that? Well, this unique blend of spirituality and science had a name. They called it Scientific Illuminism. The name says it all, really. It was a method to achieve illumination, a state of higher consciousness, but using what they considered to be scientific experiments. The whole point of the system was to get verifiable results, and maybe more importantly, to keep you from fooling yourself, which they saw as the biggest trap on any spiritual path. And this all leads us to the journal's motto, the phrase they printed right there on the cover: the method of science, the aim of religion. That one line just perfectly sums up their entire radical mission: to use the cold, hard, repeatable techniques of science to achieve the transcendent goals that have for centuries belonged to religion. So that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question for today, doesn't it? Right now, we've got mindfulness apps to quiet our brains and biohacking to optimize our bodies, but what can we learn from a system from over 100 years ago? A system that saw absolutely no difference between the body, the mind, and the spirit, and demanded nothing less than complete scientific mastery over the whole shebang.